Hi folks, welcome back to my World of Tanks replays with the mighty Jingles, and today we're looking at the French Tier 5 tank destroyer, the S35-CA. As mentioned previously, very impressed with the AMX-50 Foch 155 Tier 10 French tank destroyer on the test server. I got to get me one of those, and in order to do that, you've got to go down the French tank destroyer line. And now we're sitting here at Tier 5 on the S35-CA. And this is kind of a sweet spot in the French tank destroyer line. But let's get the obvious out of the way first. That is an ugly machine. It's a cast iron bathtub on a pair of tracks with a gun sticking out of the front. This thing is not going to win any beauty contests. It has looks that even its own mother couldn't love. When this thing was born, the doctor slapped the mother. Alright, crap jokes aside. World of Tanks isn't a beauty contest, and just as well, because this thing wouldn't even get entered. But it does perform quite well, and it's quite surprising in a number of factors. So we'll look at the stats first. It's got 4 crew. We have a commander, we have a gunner, we have a driver, and we have a loader. In common with all of the Tier 5 tank destroyers, it only has 330 hit points. I mean, some have 350. This has the lowest. Let's get this out of the way straight away. It's French. It doesn't have any armour. It doesn't have any hit points. But in the Tier 5 tank destroyer family, everything may as well be French because they're all pretty much the same. They're all quite mobile machines with lousy armour, very low health. They're all pretty much the same. While this does have the least health, the tank destroyer with the most health at Tier 5 only has 350. So, yeah. It doesn't really matter. There's not much of a difference there. What is surprising, considering this thing is French, is that it has one of the weakest power to weight ratios. It's not that mobile. I mean, it's not slow, but it's not very mobile either. It weighs less than 20 tons. It can weigh up to 22.8 tons. I don't have any extra modules fitted, just a camo net that I had spare lying around in the garage. But it only has a 260 horsepower engine. Now, it can get up to 37 kilometers per hour, but in practice that's rarely the case. 30 is usually the limit. Going downhill, yeah, it can hit 37 kph, but don't expect to reach that on flat ground or off-road. It just can't do it. It doesn't go up hills very well at all. It's uncharacteristically French as far as its mobility is concerned. It is the least mobile of any of the other Tier 5 tank destroyers, but it's not slow. Armour, yeah, crap, useless. Comes as no surprise to anybody who drives French machines. The armour is absolutely pathetic. However, the armour of all the Tier 5 tank destroyers is pretty useless. So again, you're not really at a disadvantage against your competitors where that's concerned either. But where this thing really does stand out is in 2 factors, and that first of which is the view range. 400 metre view range. It's open-topped. And you're going to find that open-topped tank destroyers and open-topped vehicles of all descriptions tend to have much better view range than tanks with traditional enclosed turrets, for example, or enclosed casement designed tank destroyers. And if we compare this with the Su-85, which is a fantastic machine, but its view range really sucks. 280 meters, and that's because it's completely enclosed. It's very low down to the ground, and you'll see that's the same on the Stug, which is a great machine, but 310 meter view range, still kind of low. Better than the Su-85, superior German optics, but flat, low profile machine, completely enclosed, crappy view range. You go to the Americans, they get the Wolverine and the T-49, and the Wolverine has 370 meter view range. Quite a tall vehicle, open topped. Same with the T-49, 370 meter view range. Quite a tall vehicle, and the top appears that is actually an open top vehicle. It has a cover put on the top that can be flipped open. So that explains the 370 meter view range on this. But the S35-CA, a country mile ahead of the others where view range is concerned, and that is a real advantage, especially in a tank destroyer. See them before they see you. In this, you don't usually have to rely on other tanks going ahead and scouting out targets for you. You can generally see them coming. Of course, it's always better to be shooting at targets well outside of their own return view range, and for that it is better to have other targets scouting, or the tanks, sorry, scouting out targets in front of you. But this thing isn't as crippled as, for example, the Su-85 if it ends up having to scout for itself, because it does have a good pair of eyes on it. Now the other thing, I said there was two things that made this thing stand out, is the gun selection. And there they are. There's the stock gun, 17 pounder, there's the 105mm, and there is what is technically the best gun, the 90mm. But we're going to put the 105mm aside for the moment. We're just going to compare the stock 17 pounder gun versus the 90mm DCA-30, which technically is the best gun on this thing. And we're going to compare the stats. Well, the stock gun, this is the best stock gun in the game. This thing, you can quite happily play the S35-CA without ever researching those two guns. I mean, the rate of fire is almost double the rate of fire on the 90mm gun. The penetration is better. I mean, this thing does 13.33 rounds per minute as opposed to 7.4 rounds per minute. The penetration is better, 144 versus 135. The damage isn't as good, but that's what you'd expect. But it's still not bad damage, 135. I mean, that's still more than your average tier 5 medium tank. The 90mm does 240. The 17 pounder has 0.35 accuracy. The 90mm has 0.4. That's lousy. The 17 pounder has a really, really good 1.7 second aiming time, whereas the 90mm has 2.3. And the 17 pounder weighs less, so is less of a factor on that mediocre maneuverability and mobility that the thing has. So, with the exception of slightly less than double the damage, the stock gun is better in every respect than the 90mm. And yeah, it's doing not quite, it's doing over half the damage of the 90mm, but it's firing nearly twice as quickly. Penetrates more, hits more, and you don't have to aim as long. So, screw the 90mm. The 90mm can just go and poke itself. I can't think of a reason why anybody would use the 90mm gun, which is allegedly the best gun on this thing, over the stock 17 pounder, because it's just such a good gun. So that leaves us with the 105mm gun. Now, my initial thought when I saw this thing was that it was just another mid-tier 105mm howitzer, a derp gun. The Stug gets one. I'm not sure. No, the Stug. I think the Stug is the only one that still gets a howitzer. I know a lot of the American tier 5 mediums can use howitzers. The tier 6 mediums can use howitzers, and it's kind of a common alternative choice on the tier 5 and 6 vehicles. A little mini derp gun that does a lot of damage, but has lousy penetration, lousy accuracy, long reload time. And at first glance, that's exactly what I thought this thing was. But it's not. That 105mm gun is an actual proper 105mm tank gun. Now look at the stats. Over the stock gun, we're not even going to bother looking at the 90mm because it's rubbish. Less than half the rate of fire. Well, you'd expect that. It's a 105mm caliber shell. 165mm of penetration. Now this is on a tier 5 tank destroyer. That is getting up into the region of Russian tier 7 heavy tank gun penetration. That's pretty damn good. 165mm of penetration. That will deal with tier 7 heavy tanks, which is the biggest thing that you're going to see in this thing. No problem. And the damage is more than twice. 300 damage. It's more than twice the damage of the stock 17 pounder. However, the accuracy is awful. 0.41. And this is why I thought it was just a weird 105mm howitzer at first, because of that accuracy and that awful 2.9 second aiming time. And the usual really, really slow reload. But it was that amount of penetration on the armour-piercing shells that threw me. That's highly unusual for a howitzer. Well, it isn't a howitzer. This is a proper tank gun. You don't start getting 105mm tank guns until, I think, tier 7, where the Jagdpanther gets one. It's unheard of. So that is an interesting gun. It's certainly an option. it changes the way you play the thing. I mean, with this gun, you're pretty much like a Stug or an SU-85. With that gun, it's kind of like playing the SU-85 as it used to be before patch 7.5 with the 107mm gun on the SU-85, which is now gone and has been replaced by a rapid-fire, high-penetration 85mm gun. So, for all you guys who are lamenting the loss of your 107mm gun on the SU-85, have a think about this as an alternative. And certainly if you have an S35-CA, there's absolutely nothing whatsoever wrong with using that stock gun. It's a great, great gun. But if you fancy a little change of pace, just completely ignore the 90mm. It's not worth the time or money to research or mount it. But that 105mm is an interesting option. I'm not sure which I would recommend. I tend to prefer the 17-pounder because I just don't like missing. But that thing is definitely worth thinking about. So anyway, moving on. Let's have a look at the tech tree. As you can see, you don't even need to research that 90mm gun. Therefore, my recommendation is don't. You can skip straight through the S35-CA. All you need to do is research the tracks, and then 20,000 XP gets to the ARL V39. But it's a fun machine. I recommend playing it. It's really, really good. All of the Tier 5 tank destroyers are really, really good. They're all a lot of fun. They're all very effective. And I hear the ARL V39 isn't. So, obviously, I don't have it yet. I haven't quite got enough XP on the S35-CA to unlock it. I don't want to use free XP to skip through this. And I'll let you know what I think of this when I eventually come to play it. But this is a good machine. That is reputed to not be a good machine. Don't be in any hurry to skip through it. And it will not take you long to unlock all of these modules and earn the 20,000 XP you need for the ARL V39 just by playing this. And you'll have fun while you do it. It's a good machine, despite looking like a dog's breakfast. I just quickly want to go back to the Armour. 56mm at the front, 35 at the sides and rear. Yeah, Armour's crap. But this thing does have quite good gun depression. And that gun mantle has saved my ass on a few occasions. Now, it's a very, very tall vehicle, and the gun is mounted quite high up in the chassis. So what this means is you can use this to your advantage. And if you're going up over an obstacle or the crest of a hill or whatever, someplace where you can get sort of hull down, the gun depression on it is good enough for you to be able to just expose kind of this much up of your tank. And while this armour here is only 56mm thick, the gun mantle covers almost half of the front of the tank. And it's kind of bouncy. And I have taken a few hits on that gun mantle from shots that would have penetrated and probably killed me, because you only have 330 hit points. But that gun mantle, if you can get yourself hull down and poke yourself up over the ridge of a hill, using that gun depression to fire back, that gun mantle can be a lifesaver. So there's just a little something to bear in mind. Speaking of the gun depression, that's another thing that this thing has going for it. That is just, and again, it's one of those things that it isn't visible in the stats. You can pull up the stats of any gun, and it doesn't tell you how much traverse to the left and right the gun has. It doesn't tell you how much gun elevation it has. It doesn't tell you how much gun depression it has. These are all nasty surprises that you discover when you go out in the field. The new German Tier 8 tank destroyer. Where is it? Tier 8, Tier 8. Yep. The Jagdpanther 2. Great machine. Absolutely crap gun traverse. That's not something you can tell from looking at the stats. These are little surprises that you find when you go out and play the thing. And there are some very, very pleasant surprises when you go out and play this thing, because the amount of gun traverse this thing has is absolutely phenomenal. It's like playing a Marder. It's that good. The gun elevation, the amount that it can point the gun up, is absolutely incredible. It's just absurdly good. The depression is good, but not great. But the gun traverse is this thing's big secret. Now, if you look, you see that the gun is actually mounted to the right side of the chassis. The driver sits on the left side of the chassis, so it's not centre mounted. And what that means is that the amount that the tank can turn the gun to the left is pretty good. But the amount it can turn the gun to the right is absolutely phenomenal. It's like shooting around corners. It's that good. And that is something that you will definitely want to be taking advantage of. In games like, in city maps like Ruinberg and Ensk and Himmelsdorf, and certain parts of the new maps like Highway and Port, where there isn't any soft cover for you to hide behind, it's very, very dangerous for traditional tank destroyers that don't have turrets, because trying to shoot around a corner means you pretty much have to expose your whole hull to get around. Well, this thing, if the corner is here on its right hand side, you can practically shoot around it with that gun traverse. It is that good. So, well, let's see how it does in action. Right, so here we are, S35-CA on airfield in a tier 5 game, so we should be able to do quite well here. So what we're planning on doing here is down by the beach over there, and just watch this gun traverse. Come on, come on! Look at that! Look at that! That was amazing. Yeah. Anyway, so around the corner on this beach here is usually where the heavies like to come around. So we're gonna sit here and just keep an eye on that corner at first. And yep, good. We've got tanks going ahead to spot and engage targets for us. What gun does that T28 have? I know the T28 had the 85mm gun removed, and that looks like the... actually, that looks like the 57mm is 4. I must investigate that. That's a good gun on the T34 if the T28 gets it. Well, personally, I think I'd rather have that than the 85mm gun that got removed. It does look like there's this 4. It's a good gun. Anyway, not a lot happening here. Panzer III's moved up to the corner. He hasn't found anybody, so we're going to move up and take advantage, shooting around the corner of that gun traverse. But again, it doesn't seem... Oh, well, Churchill over there. Okay. Well, they do have 3 Churchills. So the other 2 could be coming around. Oh, wait, no, 2 Churchills. Okay, it looks like these guys are sticking together. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, they're platooned. They're going to stick together, so it's probably safe to come down this corner and start taking pot shots into them from the side. And it's a right-hand corner. I can use that gun traverse, which this Hetzer in front of me can't do. Oh, hello, artillery. There's that really good aiming time. Boom. Oh, I'm getting shot at. No, right, I'm really surprised I didn't spot that AMX-40.
That's gotta hurt.
But my tracks absorb the damage.
Penetration.
And I start to move around the corner here because I can see that Churchill up there, but we're in severe danger of being outflanked.
Enemy is hit.
Now, I don't want to get into a shooting match with the Churchill because I will lose, especially since... Oh no, Hetzer behind me finished off the AMX-40. So I'll get one shot into him that actually does damage. I mean, one shot penetrated, might have killed his gunner. But we have bigger problems behind us now. These Churchills are actually getting around us, and there's a Panzer IV over there as well, so I need to go and help out. And sure enough, gun depression, not bad. 2 shots into him before he spots me. I know how inaccurate the Churchill's gun is, and it's only going to take 1 more shot. I'm coming around looking for that Panzer IV, but then I spot this fella. And that Hetzer just can't get his gun up high enough. He's backing off. If that had been me, the Churchill would be dead. Because this thing can get its gun up high enough. It's only going to take 1 more shot to finish this Churchy off, and he lets me take it. And now they only have a Panzer III left, and we're about to cap. In fact, now they don't even have a Panzer III left. So, yeah, not bad. Killed 2 Churchills and artillery, damaged another Churchill, and almost killed that AMX-40. We actually received 4 hits. And it was that gun mantle that saved us. Only 2 of those hits penetrated and did damage. Churchill, I mean, that's what a Churchill does when it shoots at you. It's you can take a hit or 2 from a Churchill without a problem. The gun doesn't do much damage. It just fires so fast. 10 shots fired, 8 hit the target. Yeah, not bad. But let's have a look and see how that 105mm gun does. So here we are with the 105mm gun, and superficially it does look quite similar to the 17-pounder. In practice, however, it is a different gun entirely, as we shall shortly see. But first we're going to have a look at the gun traverse, the gun depression, the gun elevation, the traverse to the left, and the traverse to the right. And look at that. That is exceptionally good. Now this game ended up being very, very short. The enemy team were just hopeless. Now I don't know if I've been spotted here or not, but I'm very, very aware that anybody like that Panzer IV and the AMX ELC that went scooting over there, if they had spotted me and the enemy mediums are up here, I'm very vulnerable on that open field. Now I feel a bit more confident. Okay, time to move up. Don't have any shots of that Panzer IV, but oh, T-25AT, a Tier 7 enemy tank destroyer. And here's that aiming time. And if you have, I mean, you can see how far the shot deviated. Luckily, it still hit. But it did a substantial amount of damage. And again, that shot went nowhere near the centre of the aiming circle, but luckily it still hit the target. That's what you've got to deal with this 105mm gun. What it does hit, it tends to hurt a lot. But it's not so much the accuracy that I find as a problem with this gun, and I just need to go on record saying it's not a bad gun. I'm not saying don't use the 105mm gun. It certainly has its place on this machine. I personally prefer the 17-pounder, and the reason I personally prefer the 17-pounder is because when you're using the 105mm gun on this tank, this happens a lot. There's the target, and somebody else kills him while you're aiming. And it happens over and over and over again. And it happens so often that you start getting tempted to fire before you're fully aimed, and then you just miss. Now you're saying, well, yeah, but there's other tanks in the game that have really slow aiming times, and, you know, they manage fine. Yeah, they do, but they're not playing at Tier 5. Where this thing probably has the slowest, among the slowest, if not the slowest aiming times of any of the guns around that aren't howitzers. Now a howitzer on a medium tank you can get away with because you drive right up to the target where you can't miss and just derp them. You can't drive right up to the target in this thing because it is so fragile. you won't survive. So you have to take those shots from long range where you have to wait for the aiming time. And the guns of every other tank in the game that you're in don't give you the time to wait for the aiming time. They just kill whatever you're aiming at. So that's just something to be aware of. And again, I ain't saying don't use the 105mm gun. When it hits, Jesus, it hurts. But it ain't the most accurate gun in the world. And while the reload isn't that bad, as you can see, it's waiting to reload, waiting to aim, when everybody else is loading 3 times as fast as you and aiming 3 times as fast as you. And that can be frustrating when you're using the 105mm gun. And as I said, what it can tempt you into doing is, I mean, you're never going to outshoot a Jagdpanzer 4. You're not even going to outshoot a Jagdpanther. And it tries to con you into taking those shots long before it's fully aimed, just out of desperation, just to try and hit something. And that will be frustrating. So just bear that in mind when you're trying to decide which gun to go for on this thing. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. 5 shots fired, 2 hit the target, damaged but didn't kill, heavily damaged but didn't kill a T-25 AT, and just ran out of things to shoot at. And that was partially because this team was actually really good and that team was actually really bad. But it's still just something to bear in mind. And certainly not saying don't use the 105mm gun, but you are going to find yourself aiming at a target, oh, somebody else killed him. Okay, move on. Oh, there's a target, aim at him, oh, somebody else killed him. And it can be frustrating. For that reason, I prefer the 17-pounder. If you like your derp guns, by all means use the 105mm. It's very satisfying when it hits. So that was the French S35-CA, S35-CA, Tier 5 tank destroyer. It's a good machine. It's not my favourite of the Tier 5 tank destroyers. I think the new Su-85 might be my favourite, but it's still a good machine, and you definitely shouldn't skip through it when you're grinding your way up the French tank destroyer line. It's certainly, from everything I've heard and played, far better than the Tier 6 ARL V39. So try not to, take your time with this thing, enjoy it, because it is very enjoyable, and I highly recommend it. So that was the S35-CA. I have been the Mighty Jingles. Hope you enjoyed the replay. Catch you next time.